What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing great. Today I wanted to talk to you about common facility management terms and abbreviations. So off to the right we have the list of what I'm going to be going through, and I'm going to explain the differences between a lot of these abbreviations and terms, how they're used, and although some of the things are going to sound very similar and can be used oftentimes in tandem, I think because of the misunderstanding of what they are. I'm going to go through kind of the separations between them, when they can be used, and why you might use them. But at the end of the day, I think that these are things that come up often, and while there are an endless amount of terms and abbreviations that get thrown around out there, in my experience, these are the most common. So starting with the first SLA, which stands for Service Level Agreement. It's pretty straightforward, and a service level agreement is a separate contract that's almost within a contract that details the expectations of what service is going to be provided that the person or company is obligated to meet. So if you expect them to work within certain operating hours, if you expect them to provide certain materials, it kind of outlines the details of the actual job that you're going to be outsourcing or expecting to be performed. So that's quite simply what it is. AMC, annual maintenance contract. No, it's not the movie stock that hit to the moon and then went back down to nothing. AMCs are something that you might have with a snowplow company. You might have it with a roof and gutter company to come out and quarterly inspect and clean your gutters and downspouts. It could be your PM plan with your HVAC that come out and do your quarterly HVAC systems, but it's quite simply just an annual maintenance contract. Third is CAFM. Now, CAFM often gets confused with CMMS, and there's the other one, the Inventory Workspace Management. And although they do a lot of the very same things at their core, there are some pretty significant differences. So what the CAFM does is, in addition to managing assets and allowing you to be a scheduling agent, it's not necessarily a ticketing agent, you can't receive and take calls through it. It's going to allow the facility manager to synchronize other aspects of it with like lights, HVAC, and other assets throughout the facility infrastructure within the program. So it actually is more robust than a typical computerized maintenance management software, but it's not quite the same. So I would do a little bit more research on these. There's a lot of information out there, but CAFM gets thrown around a lot. People ask you what CAFMs you've used, and go from there. But again, so the core difference is that in addition to being a scheduling and ticketing agent like most maintenance management softwares out there, it integrates quite a bit more. So as you can see right here, some of these functionalities will allow you to remote manage in, and you can turn off thermostats remotely. You can access a lot of the building infrastructure, lighting control. So it integrates a lot more. It's more robust than your typical maintenance management software. CMMS, you've probably heard that word 1,000 times. So it's a computerized maintenance management software that takes all of the information and facilitates the process of maintenance operations. It helps optimize the utilization and availability of physical equipment like your vehicles or machinery, or your plant infrastructure, as well as other assets. It's going to allow you to take whatever you have, put it on a regular scheduled cadence, and that it'll generally generate work orders for you that you can print, assign. You generally upload your technician's information. You can assign certain things. You can upload SOPs. You can put parts, processes, associate and affix a lot of different costs. But the core of the CMMS is really its database. So you can go through, add assets, put things on schedules, and then oftentimes you're also able to receive calls. So if somebody says, hey, we have a light out in a certain area, that can now be generated as a work ticket and create a work order in addition to that. So that is what a CMMS is. There's a lot of ones out there nowadays, from maintenance connection, upkeep, contractors plus, maintenance connection. There's so many different ones out there. I would encourage you to look at it, and that's what CMMS is. It can also be referred to as Computerized Maintenance Management Information System, CMMIS, but that is what CMMS stands for. Okay, EAM. So this is Enterprise Asset Management. I wanted to put a picture of it because, again, while it's similar to CMMS and the CAFM, and then there's the Inventory Workspace Management, it stands on its own. So it does a lot of the same functions and features: maintenance planning and scheduling, predictive and preventative maintenance, labor management, HR payroll. It also does design, planning, how you're going to dispose of certain things. Warranty management may be a little bit different. You'll see it also integrates supply chain management. Will also allow you to be include any financials, which you don't really have the ability to do in a traditional CMMS. You might have some features within the CAFM and the other ones, but as you can tell, each of these have a very unique function to it that, depending on your industry, may or may not be beneficial to you. So there's really not a good one-size-fits-all. You may have more of one thing, less of another, and what you really want to do is tailor it to the 80-20 rule kind of your business. Whatever is consuming the majority of your time, you might not use 20% of what's in there, but if you use 80% of it as your core, it's okay to have a few extra things. But that's what the Enterprise Asset Management software is. Okay, CAD. So a lot of times people see CAD and they'll also refer to it as AutoCAD, which is nothing more than the computer-aided design. I'm sure a lot of you have seen AutoCAD drawings, the renderings, 3D modeling. They can be used in manufacturing. They can be used in the building. Sometimes you'll get them with new large pieces of equipment. You'll ask for CAD drawings to ensure that they'll fit within a space. Maybe you need to verify some bolt patterns, or you wanted to look at some schematics in a 3D realm. CAD, AutoCAD, computer-aided design software. BIM. So BIM is another one that very similar, but yet uniquely different to CMMS, CAFM, all these other abbreviated gerbil jargons. And what you'll find is that building information modeling is very, very in-depth. It's intense, and oftentimes it's used in the beginning of these commercial projects that all the tradespeople will work together. They'll look at a 3D and a 4D rendering of a structure, and they'll have an opportunity to get in there and simulate what it would be like if it were already in the as-built world. So hopefully the idea is, can they identify any issues before it gets constructed? So during pre-con or pre-construction, what can you do to identify issues and reduce costs, reduce setbacks, reduce change orders, all these things that may not have been able to be discovered until it was already in the built phase. And the idea is, how can you avoid all of these issues by allowing everyone to collaborate on the design in the early on process? It's really cool if you get a chance to do it. It's not used that often, but when you do get a chance to use it, it certainly is a really unique and cool feature. Okay, BMS or BAS, they kind of go in together. So building automation system, and what does that comprise of? Oftentimes it's heating, HVAC, your electrical, usually it's lighting, other access control, security systems. I'm sure you've seen it's an upgraded version of, say, motion sensors. You can put things, remote access capabilities, to where if you needed to unlock doors, turn on lights, verify where windows or doors left open. A lot of the newer commercial high-rises are being built with these. They're really cool systems. I've had it in the past where people have complained of a certain temperature, and I can tell within the building automation system that they left the window open, and the outdoor air temperature that was coming into the room through the sensor was 42 degrees. Their thermostat was set to 72, and it was never going to satisfy it. So I could just call the individual in that area and tell them that, hey, it looks like your window is open. It's kind of creepy, but it's a really cool system when used appropriately and ethically. So BMS is the building management system, or BAS, building automation. Really, really cool system. I think moving forward, it's going to improve everybody's efficiency. It's going to save everybody time. So efficiency not only on the building envelope, but on time and labor, where rather than going up to troubleshoot, if you have these things at the palm of your hand and you're able to see what's going on without having to leave your chair to solve some of these nuisance calls, that's a huge time savings and allows you to focus on things that are more important. So access control, I'll give you another quick example. I've had people call me that have needed to get into the building. Maybe we had a fire alarm get pulled. The fire department was there. Rather than break a window or whatever, they simply called me. I pushed a button on my phone, unlocked the door, team gets in, no issues, security system gets disarmed. It's fantastic, right? It's a simple way to duplicate yourself. In addition to being able to tell with occupancy sensors who's in the building, so it can throttle lighting, HVAC, etc. But yeah, that's BAS or BMS. IWMS. So I intentionally put this a little bit later because combining it with all the other maintenance softwares is just gets too jumbled. So IWMS is the Integrated Workplace Management System, and the idea is rather than maintenance management software, which it can do, it's really focused on the spatial planning and workplace resources. So not only of your company's real estate portfolio, infrastructure, and facility assets, but also of desking, your office layout. So again, very similar, but uniquely different. It may apply, it may be a good fit for you. It's just great to have as an option. So if you have more questions on this, I would look up specifically the functions of IWMS, but in short, the Integrated Workplace Management, and that's exactly what it does. So your workplace management with the added bonus of facility assets and some infrastructure. Okay, CAM, that's another common term you're going to hear. It stands for Common Area Maintenance. So common area maintenance is the cost your business pays in the area of a commercial building that are common to all tenants. So if you're leasing a commercial building, you're paying two separate areas, the usable area and the common area. Quick example of this, if you look at a strip mall, and let's say there are 10 tenants in a row, you have a dentist office, a nutrition store, and another market, right? All of those have a common area walkway to get to them, but each one of those stores have their own dedicated space. In the HOA world, if you're going down a hallway, think of it the same thing. The hallway is the hallway is a common area where it serves the greater good for everyone, yet you get to go into your specific dwelling or your unit. And then there's also other options in here where CAM is common area maintenance. There's also limited common elements and a couple different things that don't come up as often. But common area maintenance is an additional fee that you're going to pay to maintain that common area space. General conditions are cleaning of the common area space, painting, upgrades. It can range from flat work, so if you needed to redo the pavers out in front of businesses, or if you needed to upgrade the lighting in the parking lot. These are all common area items that the tenants are going to be responsible for. CAPX. CAPX is another common term that gets thrown around all the time. It stands for capital expenditures. So CAPX is used to connotate a one-off on a long-term expense that needs to be incurred for an asset's replacement, upgrades, or improvements. Capital expenditures are Purchases and expenses incurred that are generally not regular reoccurring or monthly operating expenses. They're typically associated with large purchases such as equipment, furniture, property, and improvement. A lot of times they are over a certain dollar amount. So in this case, this was a previous company of mine that the capital expenses, anything above $1,000 and met that criteria, was going to be categorized as a CAPX. And so let's take example. So if you needed to replace a pump that was over $1,000 that had a long life expectancy that was unforeseen, you would use it as a CAPX or a capital expenditure. Some of the advantages to capital expenditures that they can also depreciate these costs, and depending on your company can help reduce your overall tax liability, and that's the advantage of it rather than to roll it into the typical operations and maintenance category. But CAPX, really common term. OPEX, operating expenditures. That's essentially the opposite. So things that come on a day-to-day. Sometimes you'll have light bulbs, maybe some light plumbing. You'll have just your consumable items that you need to purchase that fall under a certain threshold that don't need approval. Just paint touch-ups, general maintenance and repair. That's typically what the OPEX refers to. On a lease, you're also going to see OPEX. It's just an additional amount of money that you're responsible to paying in addition to whatever base rent you have, generally in a triple net lease, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that's OPEX. O&M, you've probably seen this before, stands for operation and maintenance. This is absolutely the core of facilities management and is used to describe virtually everything. I would say that 80%, if not greater, fall into this category of O&M. O&M is generally the name for budgetary line items that would fall under it. So you could say O&M, but whether you have pools, spas, maintenance, repair, it could even be vehicle. So again, as long as it doesn't classify itself under the capital expenditure category, everything else generally falls in the O&M category. Then there was the word PMP. So PMP stands for Preventative Maintenance Program, which is a series of processes, guidelines, and tools that help your business and facility do as much preventative maintenance as possible while being efficient with your time and money. So if you see the word PMP out there, sometimes it can stand for Project Management Professional, but in the FM world, it stands for Preventative Maintenance Program. PM, you're going to see the word PM. It doesn't mean you come in to work in the afternoon. It means preventative maintenance. Predictive maintenance, it's another term that you're going to see, which are techniques that are designed to help determine the condition of an in-service equipment in order to estimate when maintenance should be performed. This approach promises cost savings over routine time-based because tasks are performed only when warranted. So what that means is at a certain interval, whether it's broken or not, you're going to perform a certain set of processes and procedures. So if you go to a pump and it's been operating for 1,000 hours, whether the bearing is bad or not, you're going to replace it. And so the idea is you're predicting when it's going to fail, you're going to anticipate that, and you're going to replace it before it happens. If you have the opportunity, predictive maintenance is probably the number one form of maintenance in the field. The upfront costs are higher, but the long-term savings outweigh everything else by and large. So if you see the word predictive maintenance out there, that's essentially what it is. Okay, moving on to some other terms. You're going to see NNN. NNN generally stands for triple net. So in summary, the triple net is when a tenant or lessee agrees to pay all of the expenses of the property, which generally include real estate taxes, insurance, maintenance, and that's in addition to the cost of rent and any utilities that might be going on. So triple net, you are essentially mimicking the ownership of the building without being the owner on paper. A lot of times they'll even roll in the cost for taxes of the building from the city. You have to pull all the permits. You have to do everything. Triple net is what you would do if you own the building. And the driving force behind this is you oftentimes will get a lower base rent because you are assuming all of these costs. You're going to pay, again, properties taxes, rent, operations, maintenance, insurance, everything. But the advantage is you also have control over it. You don't have to wait for anybody. The response time is a lot quicker, and that is the advantage of the triple net. So you see kind of the key takeaways. You pay all the expenses, taxes, insurance, maintenance, in addition to any rent and utilities. They're commonly found in commercial real estate. Triple net leases tend to have lower rents because tenant assumes all ongoing expenses that would otherwise be the responsibility of the property owner. Other net leases are a single net lease in which the tenant pays property taxes as a double net lease, which includes property taxes and property insurance, and that's why they call this a triple net. The triple net leases on properties have become popular because they provide low risk and steady income. So the lessor is also incentivized to lease it to you because you are assuming all the risk, and by doing so, that's why they drop the cost. A gross lease. So you're also going to see a gross lease, which is actually the polar opposite of a triple net. And a gross lease is the type of commercial lease where the tenant pays a flat rent and the landlord pays for all operating expenses, or OPEX, regularly incurred by the ownership, including the taxes, electricity, and water. These are most commonly found in apartments or condos, oftentimes just private party ownerships. They can be in commercial, but you'll see that the downfall is if you get a gross lease from a commercial landlord, the monthly rent rate is going to be significantly higher because they are bearing the burden of everything. They don't know your occupancy. They're expecting you to make these phone calls and say, hey, the heating's not working. We need a new X, Y, and Z. So they're going to be having to deal with a lot more nuisance issues and calls from you. And because of that, the cost is going to go up dramatically. Reserve study. Reserve studies are great capital budgeting tools. So they come in and they'll help identify the current status of your reserve fund in a community, which is nothing more than how much money do you have in the bank in order to make repairs over the coming years for equipment that it has identified throughout your property that may be in need of future repair. So they want to ensure that you have adequate funding in place that will help offset any ongoing deterioration, whether that's painting, your equipment, your roofing, interior, fixtures. It covers everything. So a reserve study is really cool if you have the opportunity to get it done because you get an independent, impartial person that comes on property to evaluate all of your equipment conditions, and they do it with a really amazing book that can explain to you the reasoning and justification behind everything, and they'll also include any costs that should be associated with them to help you budget for any issues that you can expect to come down the pipe. So it's really a great tool that will help you budget for things in the future. But that's what a reserve study is. Useful life, you're going to see this word a lot. So useful life is the estimated lifespan of a depreciable fixed asset during which it can be expected to contribute to the company operations. So that's kind of a jumbled phrase again. But useful life is an important concept in accounting because it helps fixed assets depreciated over its time. Oftentimes it's also referred to as the service life. A product's service life is the period of time it's in use or service. In a non-textual context, it has no scientific support or meaning. So this is somewhat of an arbitrary figure that they're estimating how long something will last based off of conditions. It's very hard to predict because you don't know everything that's going on, and you can't assume it's going to be the perfect condition all the time, and it's going to max its useful life. Several other terms more accurately describe product's life from the point of manufacture, storage, and distribution and eventual use. Useful life is great from accounting and for planning on preventative maintenance or predictive maintenance. You can take again, a pump, and you can say, okay, this thing has a 5-year useful life expectancy. How you depreciate its fixed asset, meaning, let's say you bought this pump for $1,000 and it has the useful life of 5 years. So every year it essentially depreciates $200. And if a repair is needed, you can calculate whether it's worth repairing or replacing. So let's say that year 3 comes where it's depreciated $600, $200 a year, and the repair cost is $500. What do you do? Well, you can say, okay, it's on year 3, it's depreciated $600. The total cost of a pump is $1,000. The amount of repair is greater than 50% of the equipment's remaining useful life. I probably shouldn't make that repair. It's probably worth purchasing something new. So that's what useful life is in a nutshell. All right, I kind of went over this prematurely. The remaining useful life, you'll see it as RUL. So it is a subjective estimate of the number of remaining years that an item or component has remaining with its ability to function in accordance with its intended purposes before warranting replacement. So back to my previous example, if you have something again where the cost exceeds 50% or more of the value remaining in its useful life, it is typically and traditionally not worth repairing. It's simply worth replacing. So understanding the remaining useful life of your components is huge because you're not going to be spending money in vain, and you're going to be saving money over the long run, not only money but efficiency and your time. Building envelope, you're going to see that word. What does building envelope mean? What is it comprised of? So building envelope is absolutely the physical separator between the conditioned and unconditioned environment of a building, including its resistance to air, water, heat, light, and any noise transfer, right? So it's everything that keeps the merciless environment of the world out so that you can maintain the conditions of your as-built structure. So the typical building envelope consists of your fenestration, which are your doors and windows, roofs, walls, insulation. The building envelope separates the unconditioned environment from the conditioned interior and it is one of the key factors that impacts the building energy consumption. So they'll often say, well, how tight is your building envelope, right? Like the curb adapters on your rooftop units, your doors, your seals, your windows. Are they new? Are they single pane? Are they energy efficient? Are they fire rated? Et cetera, et cetera. That's quite simply what the building envelope is referring to when they talk about that. IFM. So you're also going to see the word IFM, Integrated Facility Management. It's a method of operating a property that consolidates outsourced tasks to as few as vendors as possible, ideally a single entity. Tasks include maintenance, repairs, and general facility management and upkeep. Integrated facility management streamlines the oversight involved in contracting hard and soft facility services. A lot of times you're going to find these are very common in hotels that have property managers. They'll find them in large-scale property management companies. You'll also find them in commercial strip malls and other properties. So rather than the building owners having to call a roofing contractor, a painting contractor, a pressure washing contractor, a parking lot striping contractor, they'll generally try and find an IFM that can put everything under one roof. And rather than make 17 phone calls to get all of their building services, they make one and say, hey, make this happen. Regardless of not whether the IFM will outsource it is irrelevant because they still get one bill at the end of the day and the issue gets resolved. Integrated facility management is absolutely the way to go. KPI, you're going to see KPI thrown around a lot as well. What are your KPIs? Well, it depends. You can have metrics that are key performance indicators on anything you want. It can be cost per square foot on construction, renovation, remodeling, tenant improvements. It can be utility costs, energy costs, water consumption, spatial density. KPIs can refer to anything and everything, but the actual definition of it is your key performance indicators in your role. Another one that you may or may not see depending on your level is your NOI, which stands for net operating income. It's a calculation that is really used to analyze the profitability of your income generating asset, your real estate investments. It equals all revenue from the property minus all reasonably necessary operating expenses. And while you as an FM are not the accountant or the controller, because the largest costs are related to your department, you're likely going to have privy to this type of information because they're going to be asking you all the time, depending on the board that you might have to report to or investors. It really varies, but they're always going to want to know what's our NOI, which is your department minus the income from tenants, essentially. But when you see that word out there, now you know it's net operating income. And that is all I have. So I hope you were able to learn something today. I hope you picked up a couple terms that maybe you didn't know. Maybe it's piqued your curiosity into investigating a few of those different maintenance management softwares out there, or the building information modeling. Maybe it's going to give you some insight, or just send you down a couple rabbit holes, and will make you a better educated facility manager. So thank you for watching, and as always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you tuning in, and please, if you wouldn't mind, it would do me a huge honor and a favor to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you have a great day.